This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. In other crime news, police are searching for a lone gunman who robbed a business establishment around 7:30 p.m. on Thursday. Initial reports indicating that the man, allegedly armed with a firearm, forced his way into the establishment on Sunlight Cottage off East Street and demanded cash. The merchant complied and was subsequently robbed of an undisclosed amount of cash. The suspect fled the area on foot in an unknown direction. Anyone with information that can assist the police in their investigations into this matter can contact the police at 911-919 or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. That's 328-8477. In a preventative effort against schoolyard violence and antisocial behavior, as has been seen on multiple videos shared on social media platforms, the Royal Bahamas Police Force has launched a school public bus system as part of their school policing program. Coordinator of the school policing program, Chief Superintendent Cheswell Hanna, explains how some schoolyard disputes result in serious injuries to students.
So along with our school resource officers, we sat down and we tried to come up with a creative idea to reduce the number of these fights and incidents that occur after school. What we found when we analyzed the trends was that a number of these fights involved students who were walking to the bus stop or waiting on the bus at a bus stop. So we put our heads together with the appropriate stakeholders, and we came up with an idea that we believe will be helpful in reducing these incidents. So rather than a school student having to walk to a nearby bus stop or wait on a bus stop, we sought to bring that bus stop here on the school campuses. So our first line of communication was with the controller of road traffic, who has been very, very supportive of this initiative. He gave authorization for the bus drivers who are interested to come off of their routes and service these schools in the appropriate numbers.
Chief Superintendent Hanna explains that they also spoke with representatives of the Bahamas Unified Bus Drivers Union who are in support of the initiative. President of the Bus Drivers Union, Rudolph Taylor, says it has been a collaborative effort on behalf of all stakeholders.
We know in the media there's always been something negative about the bus drivers and the buses and the way they conduct themselves. So this is one way that we can see that we can get it done, and we can show that we are positive in the way that we traverse with the children on our streets. As well, it calls for persons who are, their badges up in order. They are up in order in terms of standards that is expected by the Road Traffic Authority, as well as our Road Traffic Department, the police as well. So this is an effort that we welcome, and the Bahamas Unified Bus Drivers Union will do our endeavor to make sure that the children stay safe the best way possible in getting them home as quickly and as safely as possible. So we'll see how this week goes, and hopefully there'll be more days to follow. So we welcome it as well.
Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, Lorraine Ambrister, thanked all parties. She also spoke on the issue of learning loss as well as incidences of school violence that capture the nation.
We have adopted a multifaceted approach to address all of these issues. And today we're here to address the issue of school violence. And all of this comes under the ambit really of a program that the Royal Bahamas Police Force has led us through, a school resource officer program, where the police come on campus and under the leadership of the principal, which is a very unusual program because, you know, the police, they take charge. But under the leadership and in collaboration with the principal, they work to reduce violence and to improve the morale and character of students within the school. And certainly this school busing program, in collaboration, of course, with the Road Traffic Department and under the authority of the Road Traffic Controller, is an excellent source of ensuring that we deal with the problem before it manifests itself in the streets. We know that at 3 o'clock or thereafter, a huge amount of fights break out. That has been, we've attested to that. And so this is a very proactive means of addressing that by having the buses come onto the campus.
Ms. Ambrister goes on to explain that 15 schools on New Providence are a part of the program, providing the opportunity for students, staff, and stakeholders to be safe. which is part of the multifaceted approach the Ministry of Education is using to address this issue that has negatively affected the nation's schools since COVID. Members of the official opposition responding to the government calling for the assistance of a high-profile American public relations firm in the wake of the FTX fiasco. FNM leader Michael Pintard says it was the advice of the opposition during the early stages of the cryptocurrency organization's collapse to seek PR firms to work to soften the blow on the reputational damage to the country.
And that it was absolutely important that while we address what we have done historically, that we also push back on this notion that not just the attack on our attempts to build a niche market in terms of financial services as it relates to digital assets, but we also needed to push back on persons trying to expand an individual company collapse to a reflection on the overall management, regulating of the financial services.
FNM leader Pintard says that the recommendation was made to hire a Bahamian firm or Bahamian firms who would then be able to liaise and form alliances with international firms to set the country's fiscal reputation back in place. Mr. Pintard says the opposition is pleased with the move from the government, although they hope that officials will address new case findings.
Former CEO of FTX, having written the Attorney General and others of note, offering to make whole one category of investors, which is contrary to the law, to make them whole, and that he's prepared to leave a portal open so that this could be done. And we are deeply concerned that the Attorney General did not swiftly answer to say to the former CEO that this was an illegal recommendation being made, that liquidators were in place, that only them had the authority to determine what the assets are, how are they valued, and who will be made whole on what schedule, that no government has the right.
Mr. Pintard says more will be discussed when Parliament members return to the House of Assembly next week, Wednesday. What is needed is more science, facts, and less science politics. This, according to Chinese embassy in the Bahamas spokesman Shui Wei in a statement released in wake of some countries imposing stiffer restrictions on travelers coming out of China. Since announcing their decision to rescind their zero-COVID policy, which gained notoriety for its extreme stringency, various countries, including the United States, Australia, the UK, France, and Italy, have imposed entry restrictions on travelers coming from China, with mandatory testing required for some countries. Earlier this week, Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michael Dowell, announced that there are no plans for the government of the Bahamas to impose COVID-19 testing requirements for travelers arriving from China, as a surge in COVID cases has occurred in that country. The World Health Organization is questioning the Chinese COVID-19 reporting, particularly how they count deaths. In response, China's statement professes their participation in the international cooperation against the pandemic. In the statement, China vows that it has effectively responded to 5 global COVID waves, avoided the worst impacts of the original strain and the Delta variant of the virus, and has maintained one of the lowest infection and fatality rates, while also claiming that they are in unison with those aiming for economic reopening and recovery, as well as readjusted response measures in the light of the evolving situation. The state-recognized funeral for the late Ruth Rosalie Miller held this morning at Bethel Baptist Church, with former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham and Minister of Education Glenys Hannah Martin giving remarks and condolences. Mrs. Miller was a former financial secretary at the Ministry of Finance and a trained and certified nurse who served as the administrator of the Princess Margaret Hospital. During her tenure, she served under 3 former prime ministers, including Dr. Hubert Minnis, Perry Christie, and Hubert Ingraham.
She harbored a passion for knowledge. As a result, mastered many disciplines, as you've been told. She trained as a nurse in the United Kingdom and began her public service career at the Princess Margaret Hospital. She studied hospital administration in Canada and business administration in the United States of America. she was a perpetual student. Very quickly, therefore, I determined that she had a capacity that could be used in other areas for social development in the Bahamas. So I engaged her in the development of a housing policy for the Bahamas.
The former Prime Minister also giving thanks for Mrs. Millar and her time spent serving the Bahamas as he addressed her family with condolences. Minister Hannah Martin stood in for Prime Minister Davis, who is currently out of country, the Education Minister, praising Mrs. Millar for her contributions to the Bahamian society.
She came from humble beginnings over the hill, but it was her extraordinary gifts and her focused determination which shook off all of the confines of the day and propelled her through the ranks of the public service to ultimately become the financial secretary in this country, a post only a few have held in the modern Bahamas and only the second woman ever in Bahamian history. Her rise and emergence in the life of our people has been substantive and important. Her life and legacy in public administration and public service set a standard, signified by a stellar, no-nonsense management track record, a sharp intellect, consistent high standards of professionalism, and a patriotic zeal which underpinned an unflinching commitment to the advancement of our people.
The interment followed in the Lakeview Memorial Gardens and Mausoleum on John F. Kennedy Drive. And finally, children on the island of New Providence are in for a real treat this coming majority rule holiday as Playground Bahamas, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Vitamalt, Courtyard Marriott, and Simplified Lending, will host the Frozen and Friends Family Fun Day at the Kendall Isaacs Gymnasium from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. President of the Playground Bahamas, Jason Cartwright, says this is the first event they have featured since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This year, we've teamed up with the Special Education Unit of the Ministry of Education, which is Ms. Clark and Ms. Cunningham, those. And all proceeds are going to aid with assist in getting materials and other things to help the kids in our government primary schools who have special needs as well. What we also did was tickets are being sold in the government primary schools. So 50% of those proceeds will aid in the school itself, and the other 50% will go to aid with the special ed unit. We also had our title sponsor, Simplified Lending, come on board as well, which has been a huge help in assisting, seeing that the event is a very costly event. But what they also did was they also bought 200 tickets themselves and have recently donated to 4 different government primary schools in the inner city, giving them 50 tickets for free.
As for what children and parents can expect on Tuesday, Mr. Cartwright says there will be many movie characters on site.
It's going to be a fun-filled day. The gates open at 12 p.m. We're going to have ice cream, hoopla, giant trampoline, kids food, kids items, stuff for the kids to do. They have this Nerf World game set up for the older kids who want to play with the Nerf guns in a controlled environment. They're going to have laser tag. There's a bunch of fun stuff that's happening. The host is going to keep them occupied with kids karaoke, other fun little limbo games, stuff like that, just to keep people entertained throughout the day. You're going to have the normals like face painting, corn dogs, pizza, everything else a kid would enjoy is going to be at the event. Afterwards, we're going to go into the gym itself and prepare ourselves to be performed with abstracts from each one of the characters.
The event will end with a Junkanoo rush out at 6 p.m. Acting Assistant Director of the Special Services Section of the Ministry of Education, Sharon Clark, while expressing her gratitude to Mr. Cartwright for choosing the ministry for the donation, notes how important it is to facilitate special needs children in the schools.
Children, they learn kinesthetically, they learn tactily, so they learn hands-on, using their hands, that kind of thing. If there are those who have, for example, our Center for the Deaf, hearing impairment, so we know they might need devices to assist them to be able to hear better. Those who have speech difficulties or physical impairments, which prevent them from talking, because I know you probably know some children who just do not talk for whatever reason. So we have assistive listening devices and assistive devices that we use, let's say at the Bahamas Association for the Physically Disabled, or at the Marjorie Davis Center, or any of our special needs school. But you know, it's good that we have the technology now, so a lot of things are done with the devices, with the tablets, and with the phones, and with the laptops. And but there are a lot of technical programs and technology that we have to purchase, and that's what this will assist teachers in doing, is purchasing those programs.
Mr. Cartwright says the target number of people needed to attend the event to meet the donation's goals is 1,500 people. Tickets are being sold at all government primary schools and all cash and go locations and online. The cost of the tickets are $10 for general admission, $25 for VIP, which will allow children to be a bit closer to the performance by the Disney characters. And that'll do it for your JCN Evening News. Once again, I'm Dorino Saunders. Thanks for joining us.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.